Good morning and welcome back to Kim's Cozy Corner. I'm Kim and we are going to do some jobs around the garden today. It's time for me to start pulling things out and opening up space for my fall garden. And I'm going to start with working on this broccoli that's been in my garden now since I believe it was April. And I've cut it back. I've been harvesting shoots off of it. I cut it back. I've been harvesting shoots. And so now I'm going to go ahead and get my last harvest off of this broccoli. And you see it's going to flower. It's flowering. And we're going to get the last harvest off of it. And we're going to pull these out of the garden so that we can start preparing the space for the fall garden. So I am going to actually cut these out at the base. And my daughter is going to harvest all of this good broccoli right here. So this is a perfect side shoot of broccoli. We're going to harvest these and enjoy these probably later today. And then just cut out all of the pieces where they've gone and started flowering. But at the end of the day, all of this broccoli is coming out. So let me get this cut out. All right, there's your first one. So you can take it over there and cut out these beautiful heads, okay? Go ahead and take your bucket. I do have broccoli inside in my indoor grow space that I am getting it ready for this fall garden. To give my broccoli the best chance at surviving outside and getting a good harvest, I found that transplanting the broccoli out, one, gets me a jump on the broccoli, and two, I get a harvest, a healthier plant when it has a chance to start indoors first. I don't want those. Those are no good. Okay. This one's good. Okay. So my broccoli has been shading out these tomato plants all season long. And it looks like there's some trees growing in here that needed to be taken out as well. A little bit of grass. I'm going to keep the mulch in place for now because it's not time to bring that out here yet. So I don't want to remove the mulch and leaves start growing up in the space. This bed is ready, and I'm not going to remove the broccoli stalks here. I'm going to leave them in the ground until the end of the season. Well, I don't know. That's pretty easy. Nah, I'm going to leave them in the ground to the end of the season, and then we will get these removed before next season. But we're just going to cut them back for now until I'm ready to truly prepare this bed. And if they're still super easy to get out, I'll remove them. If not, we'll wait to the end of the season for the garden cleanup. But I've pulled the weeds out. I'm just going to lay them on top, let them compost in place. And I'm going to move over to the other broccoli in the garden. So I have 3 more broccoli plants here. Lots of trees too. lots and lots of trees. I'm going to pull this one out since it's coming out pretty easy. Removing trees and weeds. Now I still have a few onion over here that I have been pulling for fresh eating instead of using my supply that I've put away. Man, there's a lot of trees in here. I gave this bed a very deep watering this morning. So it's nice and wet, easy to pull these weeds out, or should I say trees out. They're really growing around these last few onion that I have in here. Now, when I harvested all of my onions earlier, these just weren't ready. And since they weren't ready, I said, hey, I'll just leave them. And as I need onions now for cooking, I just come and get them fresh out the garden. They taste amazing. And I'm not going to have to worry about hardening them off, drying them out, curing them, any of those type things, since we're only using them for fresh eating. Now, my little helper loves broccoli. That's one of her favorite vegetables. And since my girls are constantly helping me in the garden, they are really understanding how to grow your own food. And honestly, I think they eat more vegetables now than they did before because they enjoy the fact that they help produce that vegetable and they help grow that vegetable. And they say my vegetables taste better. I don't know if that's true or not, but when you think about putting your hard work into something, it usually tastes a little better. Now I'm going to go ahead and start me a pile here on the ground so I can see what's already been picked and what still needs to be picked from a weed standpoint, because there's quite a few in this bed and beside the bed. Now, some of this broccoli I started indoors in my indoor growing space in containers, and then I transplanted them outside. So some of these have been going since, what's that, about February? Which I think is pretty awesome. I'm going to take out that cabbage there that's not going to make anything. And behind this area here, these are tomatillos. And I have some that's like actually on the ground that I missed. So we will get those picked as well. So just want to show you the area that I've cleaned out here. I had broccoli all in this space here. I've cleaned it out. I'm going to pull out the last couple of trees that I see over there. And this space will be ready for the fall. I've also removed closer to the ground some of the cabbage that was in this space here. Now this cabbage actually shaded out my carrots, so I have poor germination on the carrots. But now we'll have this nice space here to start the fall harvest, and I need to harvest some of this cabbage. This cabbage is definitely ready. They're smaller heads, but they're ready. This head right here desperately needs to be picked. This little bitty head of broccoli right here is already hard. I don't think it's going to get any bigger. This one is still growing. I don't think this is going to make it. So let's just go ahead and pull it out. Tell you what, today I am being eaten alive by mosquitoes. Let me see. Normally mosquitoes bother me in the mornings first thing or late in the afternoon, but not midday. I'm in the jungle. I got flowers all around me, melons all around me. If you don't know much about tomatillos, when the husk get dried out or the fruit inside the husk completely splits it open, you know your tomatillos are ready to harvest. And I'm just going to throw them over here in a pile for my daughter. Now, last year was my first tomatillo harvest, and these are a larger type of tomatillo here. Last year, my tomatillos completely filled this husk and they were like bursting out of it. This year, I have a combination of some really large ones like this, as well as the typical smaller size tomatillo. So we will use both of those as we're making our salsa verde, which is probably going to be a 2 or 3 year supply. So there's my tomatillo harvest today. We're over here checking to see how my daughter's doing. Now, I know it's super late in the season, but my tomatoes look amazing. So I am going to try to open up, give it just a little more airflow in here so that these tomatoes can keep producing, because the season's going to start cooling off. And I want to make sure I can get as many tomatoes as possible to ripen as we're starting to end the season. And again, I've never had my tomatoes look this good on August 27th. Zone 6A in August, my tomato plants should not look like this. And the only thing that I did different this year compared to other years is 100% of my tomatoes, I started from seeds myself, indoors, and I fertilized every 10 to 14 days. I made sure I had good, even watering as well. And that's really it. Nothing special at all. But I will absolutely do it the exact same way next year. Usually the first tomatoes that come in have blossom end rot. I've had no blossom. Well, I don't want to jinx myself, but so far this year, there's been no blossom end rot. The watering routine was good. The fertilizing routine was good. It's my best year, I believe, in the health of my plants. And it's not just all pretty leaves. There are tons of tomatoes on here that are starting to turn, and I've already canned gallons and gallons and gallons of tomatoes. You going to get the tomatillos? Yeah. You getting trapped by all of the jungle? The jungle's got you? Like a lot of these limbs, like this right here, this is a sucker that I didn't cut off. I let it grow and it's doing well. Like I have tomatoes 6 feet in the air. That's okay, because I'll just get my ladder and get those tomatoes. What else is different? I trellis different this year. So the cattle panel trellis is new this season. I'm just a happy camper. I am very, very happy with my tomatoes. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not a perfect season. It's just a better season. And in some locations, the tomatoes are starting to die back. I've lost a plant here or there. I mean, I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's definitely a stellar year. So the tomatoes that we were just looking at over here are all beefsteak type tomatoes, and the tomatoes on this side are all different types of paste tomatoes. Now, I will have to say that these are not as healthy as the ones behind me. Uh-oh, I went too far. I cut a tomato out. Now, these tomatoes were shaded out quite a bit by the broccoli. So we will see if these bounce back. Now that the broccoli's gone, we'll see if it bounces back. I mean, don't get me wrong, I have been harvesting, but not at the rate I have for everything else. But let's see how it turns out. And there's still tomatoes on these. Don't get me wrong, they're still producing, just not at the rate as these behind me here. And my helper, you see my helper right here? Look how good of a job she's doing. So I'm getting ready to head over to the neighbors so I can show you how in their garden we need to continue to improve the soil. So we're going to take some soil over to the neighbors. Okay, we are headed over to my neighbor's garden. My daughter's helping me out. So we did potatoes a couple of days ago, and this is the soil from the potatoes. And so we emptied that grow bag, and now we're going to add that soil to this garden to continue to improve the overall health of these beds. Okay, we're over at the neighbors. Before I get started, I have to show you this massive tomato that's in the garden. It's going to be hard to see, but it's actually laying on the ground. It's huge. And there's another huge one just above it. Like, look at this thing. Look at that. Massive. This may be one of my largest tomatoes, and I believe it's a pineapple. So hopefully it ripens on the vine and we can enjoy it. All right. We are going to work on these two beds here. We're going to work on this one and the one right beside it. And this bed had squash in it. It's done for the year. I mean, it's definitely done for the year. So we're going to move some of this mulch to the side. And we are going to bring in this soil from the grow bag. Let's figure out the best way to do that. Now, the tomatoes are doing great in this bed, but the squash did not do very well. And I did not add any of my potting mix into the space. We went with the soil that was already there. I'm going to try to go between. All of these potatoes that were missed. Potatoes, potatoes, and more potatoes. Let's get the wheelbarrow back out of this tight space. Now this is excellent soil right here that we're adding to this bed. Want to try to put some of the mulch back on top of it. This bed has mostly just been built up with mulch. I almost forgot to pick my squash yesterday. They told me to get it. I could have this one, and I forgot to pick it. All right, now we're going to work on this one. Can you take this to the compost? So again, I'm just trying to pull the mulch back as best I can. Now, I had cucumbers in this bed, and did they produce? Yes. Did they produce well? Absolutely not. And again, the soil is so hard. It's like clay soil, is thick, it's dense, but we're going to bring that good stuff in.
There's a lot over here.
Look at that great big old potato. More potatoes.
We're missing a lot.
Yeah, y'all did. That's why I always check your work, but I didn't do that this last time. Okay, cover it back up with some mulch. And this is how I've improved the soil in my raised beds over the last, I can't tell you, umpteen years. I take my pots, my containers. When I finish up for the season, I empty those containers into my bed to continue to build the beds up. And then I put new soil in the containers the following year. And that's what I've been doing for many, many, many years. And I've gotten to the point where my beds are nice. So I'm taking that extra soil and I'm adding it to my neighbor's bed. Building the soil up in your beds take time. And when you're managing as many beds as I am in my garden over there, as well as over here in my neighbor's garden, it takes time. You're not going to get it all in one year. So every year, my goal is to improve another bed, improve 2 more beds. And by the end of the season, I take the soil from my containers and I dump that soil into whatever bed I'm trying to improve. And then over the years, you get that fluffy, light, airy type soil that you're looking for, at least with the types of potting soils and the materials that I'm using. I'm going to end the video right here. Thank you for joining me today in the garden, doing odd jobs and getting the garden ready for the winter. So I'm putting it to bed for good, or I'm getting the garden ready for the fall planting, which I'll be doing here in the next few weeks. So if you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up, like, share, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, your neighbors, your buddies about Kim's Kozy Corner. So until next time, I'll see you back here again real soon. Bye.